Cache-maniacs.
Geo Gearheads.
Welcome back to the Geo Gearheads. This is episode 447 of the weekly show for geocaching and geo-related games, or geolocated games, sorry. And I'm Daryl W4, making lots of mistakes, so let me throw it over to my co-host, Chris of the Northwest, who will probably make other mistakes because, well, it's after a long day of work.
Well, aren't they kind of geo-related? They're all related to the Earth, which is geo, right?
This is very true.
Oh, Daryl, it has been a long week, and it's only Thursday, it seems.
You know, I had today off as a vacation day so that I could play catch up, and I still didn't get half of the stuff done that I would needed to get done.
Wait, did you do work things on your vacation day?
I actually did, but it was more, you know, like the run around and get all this stuff taken care of that you can't get taken care of on weekends anymore.
Daryl, you're doing it wrong.
I know.
Okay, good. As long as you know, we can move on from there.
Okay.
but go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we've got MC3 Cats again with us tonight to give us a little bit more info on where he goes. So first off, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, fellas, for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure.
See, and this is something I would have rather been doing than, you know, chores and errands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because really, you know, why take a vacation day to do work? It seems blasphemy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but you know,
we'll have the attack of the Chris's on Daryl. He won't have a chance.
We're going to be nice to Daryl.
Really? You're going to be nice?
We're going to be nice to Daryl.
I don't believe that.
Unless it's Scott Burks. But the guests are usually nice.
There you go. Exactly.
Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway. So yeah, we're going to be talking again about where I go. And tonight, we're going to actually take a look at building a cartridge, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, we're gonna show some pretty basic ones just to kind of maybe get some folks past the fear of, oh God, this is too hard. I don't have the tech skills. I'm not savvy enough to do this. And I think you can, and I'm going to try to show you that it's pretty easy. So hopefully we'll have a fun evening. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so where I go, if you don't know, is the type of geocache. It's one of the 13 icons of of geocaching. Am I right on that? 13?
I'm not sure it's 13, but I can't. I think it's 13 active.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, because I want to say there's like 15 total, but you can only get 13 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the types, and it is very different from any of the other geocache types because it does involve downloading a small program, which Where I Go calls a cartridge. You know, when you say cartridge, I think of my Atari 2600.
Right? I think the same
Well,
and
thing. That's what they were going for, is like the Atari and the NES, you know, all of those game systems had cartridges. So back in I want to say it was 2005 or 6 when they came out with it. That was what they were going for, is that analogy of popping in that cartridge.
Exactly.
It's a virtual cartridge.
Well, I remember going to the Michigan Avenue store, Garmin store in Chicago for a launch event, essentially, for Where I Go. And Jeremy Irish was there. We went out and did caching in it was a virtual cache like across the street at one of the towers or something like that. But we all got Colorados to go and do it because that was the hot new GPS, and you know, Where I Go was the
hot new thing.
app that was the new thing that they were touting on it. Was, it could have these apps and do all these things, hence the launch event out there.
I used the Wherigo in the Oregon, my Oregon 200,
which was quite a bit later.
Yeah, and it was okay. There was one I did around the Alamo that, I would take 2 steps, it would crash. I would have to go back to the start and do it again. So I learned to save as I went along.
Smart.
And that saved me from walking. Still, I could probably have done it in an hour. It probably took me 2 hours.
Yeah, I had an Oregon as well, and it was just really glitchy.
Mm-hmm.
You would freeze up. Sometimes you would you get partway through, and then the thing would just crash, and it was painful in those early days.
Mm-hmm.
But today it's so much better now.
So today, now we're using smartphone apps. There's the Wherigo app on iPhone, Where You Go on Android, and GeoGo will also do Wherigo cartridges.
Which I hear is the best of the apps right now on Android.
And somebody else in the chat tell me if I'm missing a major Wherigo player for Android.
Well, there was another one on Android that went unsupported and doesn't work on current versions, as I recall.
So there you go about Wherigo.
Well, GSM times 2 says, and then they did nothing with moving it forward, but it's not dead thanks to third-party developers supporting it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
You still do have to go to the Wherigo webpage to download the cartridges, which uses your geocaching.com login credentials.
Correct. Yep.
So, okay. With that said, there's a little history behind it. Here's what a Wherigo is, how you get to it, how you download it, how you play it. How do you build one of these suckers?
Yeah, that's kind of the fun part. And I think, back in the early days, and when we're talking, 2005, 6, 7, 8, that era of time, it was pretty tough because there was really you only had one builder platform. And things have come a long way since then. Thankfully, for those of us that aren't, code writers or programmers, it's so much better now. You have multiple options for platforms to build these cartridges. Some will pull in a little more of the code writing and techie kind of stuff. So those are out there if that's your thing. But there's also some that do a lot of the backstage programming for you. So they're more of a what you see is what you get type of builder program, which is what I started with and really found that wonderful to use. And that's really what I kind of want to show everybody is the basement level builder platform, show you that yes, you can do this. You can build your own cartridge and put out your very own Wherigo, and you'll have people flocking to go do it because they're these icons, the Wherigo icons are few and far between. So what I'm going to share with folks is the Wherigo kit, which is a web-based, and most of these programs, by the way, most of the builder programmers pretty much are web-based. Some are pretty easy to get to. Others you need to request credentials to get into it. The Wherigo kit one is pretty awesome. It's an official geocaching developer. So you use your own geocaching credentials to get into it, which is another plus. The gentleman that put this out is a guy by the name of Ranger Fox. That's his caching name. He's really done a fantastic job of making I want to say error-proof cartridge builder program, but it's geared for those who have never tried it, but that really wanted to build their own cartridge and give it a shot. And this is a perfect platform for that.
All right. And just a heads up for anyone listening, you might actually want to jump over to the YouTube video so you can actually see Chris's screen when he shares that.
Okay, so I've got, I'm going to go ahead and share that now so you guys can see the Wherigo program here as soon as I can find it. Here it is. Okay, so I'll just kind of scroll around. This is what the website looks like. Wherigo Kit is the name of it. You can see the web address up here, kit.wherigofoundation.com. If you want to go search for it, you can see I've done quite a few of these. Once I figured out how easy it was, I'm like, okay, I got all these great ideas. I'm gonna run with it. So the one I've got highlighted here, this is actually a live Wherigo cache that I have. And as you can tell by the little shield here, it's along Interstate 5 in Washington here. And it's just super, super basic Wherigo cache. And I'll go ahead and hit this view and edit. So this is a actual, this is what the map looks like for the program. I think they use, it's Google Maps, and you can switch it to the standard map. As well as the satellite. I like using the satellite so I can see where the pins actually drop and see if that's really in line with the coordinates that I shot at the location when I was mapping out the waypoints. As you can see, this is in a rest stop along the interstate. So this is really meant to get people out of their cars and stretch their legs, hence the name Scatter Creek Northbound Rest Stop Stretcher. This particular one is similar to like a multi-cache. And I really kind of like using the Wherigo platform as a multi-cache because all of us have been there where you've done a multi-cache and you go, geez, I hope I got the right information while I was at the first waypoint. And then you go to the second or the third or the fourth and realize, oops, I messed up some numbers way back at that first waypoint. What's nice about using the Wherigo as a multi-cache is you can't get beyond the first stage or first waypoint unless you got the right answer. So it's kind of foolproof in that way.
Kind of got a built-in checker.
You got, yeah, essentially it's a built-in checker because you can set up the cartridge so that next waypoint, so if you're at waypoint 1 and you don't get the right answer for waypoint 1, number 2 isn't going to show up. So you're going to have to get it right the first time before you can slide on down and get the second one. So that's really kind of what this one is. So just a real quick review I'll show you before I get into the map pins and all that. This is like the title screen. So you put the name of it in and who put it out and quick description. I mean, you got a little drop down here for, geocache or tour guide or whatever. I always just leave it as geocache because that's really what it is. So that's the little title page. And then you got your zones here, and it's really simple to add a zone. If you want to do a zone, you can just right click on your screen and say I want a zone right here, and then this is what you get. You'll get the coordinates here, which you can manually override. So if it's not exactly right, you can go in and whatever you saved on your GPS unit, you can come in here and adjust those. This little box here where the number 8 is, that is the zone in meters. So how big of a zone you want so that when the player walks into it, so this is like an 8-meter box, basically, that once the cacher steps into it, then that zone will pop up and you'll get the actions section, which is right here. These will pop up. You can put it.
If I can interrupt, how large do you typically set your zone?
I go more with 10 foot or 10 meter, but you can make this really as big as you want. I like to do the geocache one a little bit bigger, but in this case, this is of course this is as an example. So there's nothing here, but I think dead grass where this particular waypoint is. So you title it here. You can drop a picture in. Here's some of the pictures I have. So if I wanted to put the DOT emblem in there, then that will show up on the screen while you're actually doing the Wherigo. When you come to waypoint 4, you'll see the DOT emblem. And then over here, these are the actions that you can have for that particular waypoint. So you've got really, there's a couple of options here. This little hand thing, I have yet to figure out what it does. It just says stop the emulator. That's all you have. I never use that. So really, you're going to use the message and you're going to use the question mark or question. So this is really meant for putting in, if you want dialogue. So you would just put in, whatever you want in here. It's kind of like an introduction. If it's, if you're taking a person to, let's say, a statue or a piece of art or a kiosk with signage on it, you can kind of, put that information in here a little bit. I don't think this particular rest stop has them, but some of the others around will have like these, 4 or 5, 6 panel kiosks that have all kinds of information on it. So you can sort of guide the cashier to the right panel. So that's really what that is. And then you can pose your question. And this is really cool. So I have a little, I don't have the little question mark on here. Oh, yeah, I actually do here. So you put the question in here. So this will pop up and you'll have a question, what color is the sign? And then you can set it for, you got a couple options for the type of question. You can do multiple choice. So you put your 3 answers in here. You can say, it's brown, it's black.
And chartreuse is the other one I would choose.
Chartreuse. No. Purple. Okay, and then so you those are the choices that would pop up, and then you would just pick whatever the correct answer is. That you would highlight it with that little box there. So there's that version, or you can go open-ended, and then you'd make the so you'd have this little text box pop up in the cartridge, and the cashier would have to put in the correct answer. And if it's a number, then you would tell the person, okay, either you wanted a numerical value or you want it spelled out, so you can kind of help them. So if the answer is a number, how go ahead.
I was going to say, how precise is that? So let's say the word is blue, right? What if they put it in caps or lowercase, first letter capital?
You should be okay as long as you got it spelled right. So as soon as if you spell blue, if you just spell it BLU without the E, yeah, you're gonna get the satty face. You're gonna get this, and so you'll say, "Oops, sorry, try again."
So you've only got one wrong answer. You can't say, "Oh, you're close," but you didn't get it.
Right. It's not like horseshoes. You got to get the right answer. It's got to be, typed right. There is no credit for close.
So that's probably good in your description to put in kind of what you're looking for the format of an answer.
Absolutely. And I think you see a lot of that also in the adventures as well, the adventure labs. This is kind of a similar idea. If the answer is 2 words, you're going to tell that person 2 words, or do not enter the dash between the 2 words, or whatever. You want to, however the signage or is at that location. You'll just want to give a little direction, so you don't have the cashier sitting there trying 5 or 6 different versions of the word and getting frustrated, because who wants that? It's supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah, a quick interruption though. Forrest Ghost says that you can cheat a Wherigo by playing it online. The stop hand keeps people from cheating by stopping the online emulator.
Oh, well. Oh. Now I didn't know that, and now I do know that. I'm going to go take care of those cheaters.
You're going to put that stop hand in now everywhere, aren't you?
I know. Just going to be putting the hand up. So that's really pretty much it. You could put in a congratulations, congrats, well done. Whatever, encouragement you want to put in there for the correct answer. But that's kind of it. And so that's really how these go. You go through and, you can see what a completed one looks like. I've got a couple of questions on this one. I don't think there's really much of a limit. I mean, I could really have made this one stop because this particular sign that this was at had a ton of information. It was almost like a historical monument on the side of this restroom here at this rest stop. But you can have multiple questions at each location. And then once you get it right, then the cartridge will come back and say, okay, head this, it'll have a little compass and point you to the, towards the next waypoint. This one's a little bit shorter. There's a lot more dialogue, but there's just the one question there. And then this one actually routes you to the cache. I've had somebody tell me, somebody who's pretty tech savvy, tell me that if you know what you're doing, you can kind of crack the cartridge, and if you've got the coordinates for the cache embedded in the cartridge somewhere. So if this at this last waypoint, for instance, if I had it where it said, okay, here I'm giving on this one, I'm giving more of a direction. I'm telling them where you need to go, but I could easily say, okay, the cache is located at, North 46, and give them the coordinates if I wanted to do that. The problem is for the cheaters out there, they can crack this cartridge and be able to, get those coordinates and just go to the cache, which kind of defeats the purpose.
Horoscope says that he should note the online emulator is mostly to be used for the builders to test their cartridges.
That was my original thought on that, as how that works. So anyway, this one is like a multi-cache. So this is just a good example of how you can do a kind of a multi-cache Wherigo. This next one I wanted to show is it's a little different. This is more virtual based. So unlike the last one I just showed everybody, there is at this particular one, first of all, there's a lot more waypoints on this one. And let me put the satellite on here so you can see it. There's nothing. This is just a utility trail that runs through the neighborhood here. And this is a Trivial Pursuit. This is basically a virtual Trivial Pursuit game is how this one's set up. So just like the game of Trivial Pursuit, you're going through and you're collecting little pieces of the pie here to fill your game piece. Of course, this is geared for geocaching. So this is the first zone. I think it's the A zone, A1 zone. And so there's the coordinates for the location for that particular stop. And see, I have it set at 10 meters for it to kick in when you get to within 10 meters of the waypoint. So this one, here's the question. This again, geocache related. So these are really pretty simple. I think this one I made them all multiple choice. I didn't make any. There may be one that's actually you have to type in an answer, but these are primarily multiple choice. So if you get it wrong, you got 2 more shots to get it right. So then let's say you get past the first one. So now you're at B for the second piece for the orange zone. And look on the little picture there, you got the little pie piece that you just earned from the last zone. So that picture's on there. So here's the next question. And then if you get that one right, you move on down to the next zone, and then you get to see, now the picture has 2 pieces of the pie in there, and so on. And so this just goes all the way up the trail, up to the very kind of up here where the Y is. And then, the cache is towards the end of this trail. So I'm basically sort of routing you, taking you to the cache as you're playing Trivial Pursuit. So again, nothing in these zones. And if you notice they're labeled differently. So you have the A1, B1, C1. So because this is set up a little bit differently, it's called the blackout version of the blackout version cartridge. So it's geared specifically more for your virtual stuff. And I've got a couple others like this. This is one of them, but I've got the Signal's Birthday Adventure is one. I think that's another virtual one. No, this is one I'm still building. Ha! Showing you something I haven't done yet.
Aha!
Let the cat out of the bag.
Okay, well, while we're looking for that next one, UDAC had asked on the cache page, do you have to disclose the various waypoints to the reviewer like you do with multi-caches? And Just Finding Our Way answered him already, yes, on the waypoints to the reviewer.
And generally, I think this kind of follows the same guidelines as your multi-cache. So if you're using a virtual waypoint, if there's absolutely nothing you put there at that location for someone to find, if you're using a sign, a plaque, a statue, a kiosk, whatever, if you didn't place anything there, then it's a virtual stop, and they don't really need to necessarily know that. Now, like a multi-cache, you can put an actual piece of paper or have waypoints to the next next waypoint if you want to do that, or put the coordinates for the next waypoint. Then if you do that, then I think you definitely have to let them know, and then it follows the spacing rules for cache placement. But generally with a Wherigo, you're not putting things at those waypoints because they're really all virtual. Whether you're walking to a sign and getting information, or like the Trivial Pursuit game, there's absolutely nothing on that trail to look at. You're just virtually going to that stop, and you're getting the question being posed to you. So there's absolutely nothing placed at any of those locations. Hide and Seek with Pikachu is the one I was thinking of.
Right. Forest Ghost had a comment that actually kind of mirrors what I was expecting. Groundspeak doesn't require you to post the waypoints, but I've seen a reviewer require it before. The reviewers in Missouri don't require them. So I think it's probably up to the reviewer, and it probably depends a lot on where that cache is, because they might be trying to make sure you're not taking people to off-limit areas.
And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I mean, if there's a restricted area, and of course, the reviewers know all about those areas. Within their regions, they know some of the restricted areas. We've certainly got a few of those around here. So they know that, and they just want to make sure there's nothing. You're not putting somebody where they shouldn't be. This one is kind of like the other one I just showed you, except this one you're not playing Trivial Pursuit. You're hanging out with Pikachu's buddies on this interesting little this area here where all these power grids are. It's a pretty big substation there. This is a big mountain biking area. These are all trails in here, and there's a ton of them in these woods here. It's a spaghetti tangle of trails. It's crazy. But there wasn't much in the way of caches, so I really had to fix that problem. So this one, you're just going down the trail again, and you're running into these Pokemon as you're coming along. So here you run into Electabuzz, and he's saying, hey, this one there's no questions, it's just straight out dialogue. So he's telling you that he hey, I hear you're looking for Pikachu. Pikachu just ran past me, giggling and laughing all the way. He kept going down the trail. So we're using the characters of Pokemon, or at least some of them, to sort of guide you down the trail as you're chasing after Pikachu. And what's interesting is I can zoom it in. There's power lines here running along, and so it was appropriate to put Electabuzz there. Right next to the power tower. So this one is completely and utterly virtual. There is nothing to be found here until you get down over in this area, because that's where the cache is.
I was going to say each Wherigo has to have a physical cache at the end of it.
Absolutely.
Be posted on geocaching.com.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if it's a geocaching.com one, yes, but you don't necessarily need to have a cache for a Wherigo if you're not listing at geocaching.com.
Right. Because
And
you
there
can
are
do
some
tour
tour
guides.
cartridges.
Mhm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some recreational departments in various cities where they've used them for tours and other such things. And you can do that. I mean, I've done a number of them of Wherigos where they are done. They take you on an art tour of Abbotsford, Canada, for instance, and you're going through, I think not Abbotsford, but Langley or somewhere up there. There's an art tour one where you get to walk the town and go see all the different public art displays up there. And then, once you get through that, then you're rewarded with the cash. So it's kind of cool. So your efforts pay off. Plus you get your steps in that day too, which is kind of nice. And this one will get you your steps in a little bit. It's a nice little, this is where it starts. There's parking right here. And then you just got a nice little walk down the trail. And again, very simple one. Lot of graphics in this one because I'm putting in a lot of pictures and stuff. And actually, let's see, here's I don't know why they're not showing up on here for some odd reason, but there should be images here and it's not showing it. So this gives you, here's the details screen here, and it just kind of shows you a little bit about what you're getting into. And this information does translate over or transfer over to the Wherigo.com website. So what you're putting in the listing, all of this information will dump over into that when you get to the point of uploading it over to that to the Wherigo.com site. All of that information comes over. So that's really kind of it. This is really drag and drop. Just as I showed you on the first screen there that we did. It's that easy. You don't have to be a techie to do this. And I don't mean like Star Trekky. I mean techie.
Oh, man.
Can you kind of talk through the process of actually getting the cartridge out of the Wherigo kit though and up and what that involves?
Well, let me go back over to my screen then. I'll show you how that works. I must have gone out of it. I think I closed it out. Let me bring it back up here. So what you have to do, actually, there's two things you would do. I'll bring the Scatter Creek back up again for everybody to look at, since that's pretty easy one. Okay, so here on this screen, so when you click on any of these, this is what you get. This is kind of the entrance to the cartridge. So I was showing everybody the view and edit screen. You can actually test it. So you can use their test emulator, which is kind of cool. So you can, I'll see if I can get that to work here, just so you get an idea. You get to drop a little person, a little figure, and then you get to move them around to the different waypoints, and then it will drop them here. Oh, I see I have the GPS is off. I don't have it turned on here, I guess. But anyway,
actually, I don't think can even see the emulator screen because we're still looking at the listing.
Oh, so it's not even showing it. Okay,
right.
So it's not showing it for whatever reason here. But anyway, you can test it. You go through the map and move your little character around and get the different zones to pop up, and you can see what it's going to look like to the actual player when they when they actually download your cartridge and play it. So that's the test emulator. And then the next one below, there's the download cartridge. And so you've got three different options here. So one of them, the GWZ file, that is when you're ready to go, you've tested it out and you want to list it on Wherigo.com, you would click the GWZ download, and what it does, it will download your cartridge into that format, which is required for for listing on Wherigo.com. That is the only format that you can use. It's kind of foolproof there. The one underneath it, the GWC, that is what the players use. The Wherigo players use that file to actually play the cartridge. So when you download it, it's basically downloading ready to go to drop into any player that you happen to use. So kind of what I do is I will use the test emulator just to make sure things look right and flow, but then I will actually download it to my iPhone, download the GWC file, and I'll actually go and test it out in person to see exactly how it feels and plays, and make notes if I got to change the coordinates if they're a little wonky or spelling errors or whatever. So that's what the GWC is. So that's strictly for the players, whereas the Z is for listing on the website.
Good to know.
And then there's other stuff, and you can copy the cartridge. I think you can share it with somebody if you want to have a beta tester. There's some other stuff in here. You can publish it on the Wherigo Foundation. And of course, there's the delete file. So that's what that is.
So that seems like something, once you have the coordinates, you can pretty much set this up in an afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how detailed you want to be, and if you're going to have 25 waypoints, you can make it difficult if you want to, but it's really geared for simple stuff. And what you don't see behind the scenes is, and some of the other more involved Wherigo builder platforms, you actually have the option to make the zones however big and whatever size you want. If you want it to be octagonal versus rectangular versus circular. So some of the other ones give you more options, but you're doing more programming, see? So this one, all of that stuff is done backstage. So all you get to do is change how big the zone is. Do you want it 10 meters? Do you want it 20 meters? Or do you want it 5 meters? Those are your only options. All that other stuff, it's all done backstage. It's all done by the developer, by Ranger Fox. So it's not that hard. It really isn't.
But this one does not support things like inventory, correct?
No. So that is a trade-off. So if you want to do a simple Wherigo, then this is the platform, because you don't have to worry about building up characters and having big dialogue boxes, and then adding items that can be dumped into inventories or picked up on a trail. Obviously, the more of that stuff that you do, the much harder it is to program. I mean, it's a lot more involved. Wherigo Kit program does not allow that stuff. When Ranger Fox built it, it was the idea of he wanted it to be easy for folks to do. And if you're ready to move on to more involved cartridges, well, there's other platforms out there that will definitely allow you to do those sorts of things. I just did my very first one on a different program where I could have items and different characters that you run into, and that will take more than an afternoon to do. You're talking like weeks to put together, and then there's a lot more testing that you have to do on those, because you've got a lot more dialogue, and it's much more of an involved process.
And GSM times 2 wants to know what program you used for the which builder you used for that more advanced cartridge.
What was the name of that program? I can't remember the name of it now. Off the top of my head.
Wherigo?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think that was the one. That was the one. And that one, you have to get credentialing. You have to request credentials to even get into it, because it's a private site. It is pretty cool to use. It's a nice little, as you're going up the ladder of platforms, this one's a nice little step up. But it's Windows based. So a lot of the screens look pretty, you'd be real familiar with. And I think it's laid out pretty well. I mean, that could be a whole other show we could do just on that one. But it's, I found like a 50-page how-to guide for that particular platform, and I just used that. And there was some trial and error, some times where I'm just like,
Yeah, but for people who are just trying to get in and do their first couple of cartridges, it's probably way too much. And
if you've built quite a few of them and you get the concepts of zones and text boxes and interactions with players, and you've come up with some great ideas for Wherigos, and then you've got more of a grandiose idea, then definitely you're ready to move on to the more programmer-ish platforms. And really, we could even do a whole show on what's a great idea for a cache, for a Wherigo cache, because I've got ideas that just kind of come to me every so often where I'm like, hey, that'd be a great idea for a cache, and I just start kind of thinking of, well, how would I do that, and how would that work with XYZ platform that I want to use to build a cartridge. So the kit is pretty basic. But if you want to get into, like field puzzle type Wherigos where you're, having to pick up pieces along the trail, the example that the example one that they use in the 50-page how to use the Wherigo platform is pretty involved. It was wizard based, type of program where you're going down a trail and you're running into these different characters, and there's a lot of dialogue, and you have to, they give you a gift and you take this item and you have to use it later on. You get a key that goes to, some lockbox somewhere. You can do these amazing storylines if you wanted to. And there's platforms that will let you do that. The Wherigo kit is not one of them. It's not. It's basic. But again,
it doesn't let you get yourself into trouble like some of the others do.
Exactly.
GSM ×2 is saying drag and drop, but more complicated. Dialog boxes close and you don't know how to open them up again. At least I had those issues with a year ago.
And see, you run into those, those challenges with, but again, if you want to build this fantastic adventure for a cacher to go to, and play and hopefully enjoy. Thankfully, the one I did so far, I've had everybody, the people that have found it have enjoyed it. And because my worry, of course, is, okay, I'm doing something on a program I've never used before. I've tested it and tested it and tested it again. And God, I hope it works great. I hope people can download it, and I hope the different players will use it, because that's the other thing. I'm testing it out on my iPhone. It's working fine, but how's it going to work on Wherigo? I don't know. I don't have an Android to test that out. So, you go through those things, and some of it you kind of wing and prayer and hope it works. And thankfully, I've had some really good feedback on that cache where people are saying, hey, it played fine. I was able to go through it. It wasn't glitchy. It didn't lock up on me. So those kind of things, as a Wherigo cache builder and owner, I kind of worry about those things because I want people to find them. That's the whole point of this.
GSM ×2 wants to know if you'd share any templates that you've created.
Well, when you say templates, are you talking, is Scott talking about like cache or Wherigo template ideas that I've come up with that I would just, that I could use?
I'm assuming he's looking for something that's like a starter template, but I'm not sure that would even work that well. But would that, I'm thinking that might be that zip file.
Yeah, I don't know that I really have anything like that. I just, I have the ideas I will come up with, and then I just kind of build around them. So not everything is, cookie cut or anything like that. I tend to, an idea will come to me and I'm like, okay, how can I plug that into this? How can I make this a Wherigo? And then it's like, okay, which platform will it work best on? So I'm looking at, do we want to make it simple? Do we want to make it a little more of an involved thing. And if we want to make it a more involved cartridge, then we're going to use a different platform other than Wherigo kit. So we just, I don't really have anything that I just, have a cookie cut idea and just go with. One idea I have that I want to try out. If any of you know this game, it's a game that came out in the 70s, a board game called 221B Baker Street, and it was based on Sherlock Holmes. So the board, the game board was basically the streets of London, and you had to go around. Took your little player, and you go around. You play Sherlock Holmes, and you go around to these different shops and visit these different cobblers and stuff in old time England, and you're getting clues to try to solve a murder, and the murder is a whole storybook. So each game was a different story. So I'm thinking, how can I do something like that and turn that into a Wherigo? And something like that I would definitely would not do on the kit, because I could have a bunch of characters I could add. You go and visit the bank teller, and they give you a clue about something they saw, something about the murder or whatever. I mean, you would tailor made it to geocaching, of course. But that something like that, I would definitely would not do on the kit, because I can, put these characters and these images into the cartridge, do a whole text dialogue for them, so that when you go to the bank, the virtual bank, and you run into the teller, then that person is going to have a long dialogue with you. As you're sitting there playing, you're going to have all this text. That works really well in more involved Wherigo cartridges and platforms versus the kit. Yeah, so if you got an idea, you think it might work as a Wherigo, you should try it out. Go for it. And the Pikachu thing, just sort of came to me one day. I was getting really into Pokemon Go, and I'm like, hey, how can I use this in a geocaching sort of world? And I'm like, Wherigo, hide and seek with Pikachu.
So you chose Pikachu.
So that's what I did. And I thought, hey, this would be cool. I could do a completely virtual Wherigo cache, where you went out in the mountain bike trails over there and chase the characters, run into them, and they give you hints on where he's going, and you're trying to find him. so that just hit me one day. It's like, wow, let's put two and two together.
Well, I definitely think we could spend an entire show just talking about what makes good Wherigos, and even for that matter, Adventure Labs. So maybe that's something we should get scheduled for the not so distant future.
Yeah, I mean, the Adventure Labs and the Wherigos kind of walk sort of a similar line.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the waypoints are not instant gratification. You get a fine like you do over in the Adventure Lab side, but you're being led, or you're going on a journey, and that's where the two are kind of similar. They both tend to have a little bit of a theme. Wherigos definitely have a theme, usually, whether you're stretching your legs on an I-5 rest stop, or if you're going through in Renton here, we have the Historical Society did a fantastic job of putting these wonderful granite plaques in the sidewalks to document the old buildings in the town. This used to be an old coal mining town back in the 1800s, and so they have plaques that commemorate all these old buildings that are still around. I turned that into a history walk, which I thought was perfect. And there were so doggone many of those. I could have made this a 3-mile walk around the town, which I would have been shot at if I did that. You made me want 3 miles to find 10 or 15 plaques.
Yeah, but see, those history walk kind of things just seem like so much fun to me. That's kind of why I got into geocaching in the first place, was to do something like that. Throw up some old photos. You can't do videos, as I recall, with Wherigo.
No, I don't think that's. I mean, you can with the adventures, of course, you can. I've done a few of them where they have
Yeah, you have
video
to
file.
embed like a YouTube video or something.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun to do. But yeah, as Wherigos go, yeah, you're just the Lua programming just isn't going to allow that. But
Well,
you can
and-
definitely do pictures and other such things. So
Yeah, it was built for a different time and for pocket PCs and for GPSRs, which don't even have speakers or
Yeah.
not speakers that can really handle voices.
right, a beep or two, you know.
Right.
You're getting close, beep. Or if you're running around with a newbie, then you got the recalculating lady.
Oh man. Going back, there were only the 3 units that I remember doing the Wherigo from Garmin. There was the Colorado series, the Oregon, and the Nuvi 500s. And they did such a bad job of it. And I got so excited because I was like, finally, we're going to have a processor behind it and we're going to be able to do the sounds, because it does support sound, if I remember.
It does.
But you can't do the sound on the Colorados and on the Oregons, so no one ever does sound because that's what most people used.
And see, and now you got apps for cell phones, so you definitely have sound, so you can have that functionality built in. I haven't done much of that, and the kit doesn't have those bells and whistles where you can do those sorts of things.
And that's where you start running into crashing again in the players.
Right. So if you could start getting really tech heavy into your cartridges, you kind of run into some of those problems. So it's like, yeah, I would love to have this cool sound when you find a coin and you drop it in your bag and it jingles. But if I do that, then how are those players going to handle that? So it's kind of like, I would really, if I was going to do something like that, I would have to really test it and borrow a buddy's Android phone and have him test it as well, just to make sure that it's playing well on both, on both apps. Because I know if it'll play well on Wherigo for the Android, and it plays well over on the Wherigo for the iPhone, then I think we're in good shape, because it should be okay. It should work with both flavors of smartphones.
Yeah, and I'd love to do something like the sound for some of those historical ones. Drop a speech in or something.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You have a dream, Daryl?
Right.
No, I don't have any dreams. All right, but with that,
Daryl
we
have
can wrap this
nightmares
up.
instead.
I do have nightmares. Some of them involve not finding caches, but we're not going to talk about that on this episode.
I think a few of us
Well,
have those.
MP3 Cats, thank you for joining us. You've got to talk a little bit about the hat you're wearing, because while it's a physical hat, it's also a metaphorical hat.
It's a metaphorical. It's and it's an acronym for a geocaching organization as well. So that stands for Washington State Geocaching Association. I am currently the president of that fine organization, and our function in life is to put on geocaching events and do geocaching related activities in Washington. We also do outreach. So when scout troop wants to have someone come in and do talks about geocaching, we'll send a volunteer over, or heck, I've done enough of those. I would even go over and teach a quick class. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff. We hold CETOs. We haven't really done much of that this year for obvious reasons, but that is our main function. One thing I have done, since we do not have or not doing meetings or events or anything like that, I have started a weekly Zoom call on Saturday nights. It's just the WSGA's Geo Cafe is what I call it. We meet Saturday nights at 7:30, and it's an open forum. I may throw in a topic or two just to kind of keep it interesting, but we kind of leave the Zoom meeting wide open. Somebody wants to come in and talk about a puzzle they've been banging their head on for days on end. we can do that. We always seem to talk about adventures for some reason. I'm not quite sure how that works, but the adventures keep popping up around here. So we'll talk about them. Hey, have you done XYZ adventure? Hey, this is a really good adventure. I think we had a really good discussion on what a good lab adventure was. And then we talked about what is not a good lab adventure. And unfortunately, I've experienced both. So we'll have those conversations, and the topics are kind of wide open. So it's not a specific sort of platform.
And that's open to anyone, not just WSGA members.
Absolutely. You do not need to be a WSGA member. You don't need to live in the state of Washington. It's open to anybody. We publish the Zoom link. It is on our Facebook page as well as the WSGAonline.org website. If you look under just our main homepage, you will find it there. Anybody can join. Sit in. We kind of have it open-ended in terms of when it's over. It was originally meant to be an hour, but I don't think we've ever gone an hour. It's gone like 9 o'clock, 9:30. It's just, we keep it open and lively, and it's a lot of fun. The only thing you don't get is a smiley at the end of it, unfortunately. But well, I guess you get a real smiley on your face,
not this virtual metaphorical stuff.
Exactly. So it doesn't go to your fine count, but you get to shoot the breeze with fellow geocachers, and that's really the whole point of that weekly meeting that we do.
Awesome. Now, next week is our Randomized C show. That's going to be our 100th Randomized show. So if you have any topics, any questions, points of interest, articles, whatever you find that you want us to maybe share, email us at geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com. Again, that's geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, so that we can include those on that show.
So do the topics have to start with the letter C?
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Everything must start with C because it's randomized C.
Okay, just wanted to check in with that.
Or maybe we should just go with positive topics, as in SI.
There you go.
We're international.
C.
Awesome.
Hey, folks, until next week, make sure you check out the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the Geo Gearheads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners. So leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniac shows. Geo Gearheads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2020 by Daryl Wattenberg, all rights reserved.
Cash with a Cachemaniac.